Hi, I'm Hannah Durden and you're listening to the Outdoors Group podcast. This podcast is a call to arms to get children and young people outside again. It's your one-stop shop for all things outdoor, child, young person and education related. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be in Princetown at Base Camp, the hub for all Global Warriors UK activities. Global Warrior UK have over 20 years of polar exploration experience and are proud to be directly contributing to our knowledge and understanding of Earth. I'm here with Global Warrior Jim McNeil, one of the world's most experienced and respected explorers, and Lucy Reynolds, who's joining him for a part of his next mission. We're here to talk about the Resolute Expedition, an 11-year exploration that aims to gather crucial databases to look at the condition of high Arctic waters for their scientific partners. It's a real privilege to have some of your time, guys, so thanks for joining and for hosting me.
Oh, thank you.
So, Jim, let's start by asking exactly what Global Warrior UK is and what your background is.
What my background is about 5 hours worth. So can't do
Condensed.
that. Well, I started life as a scientist,
Okay.
working on the depletion of the ozone layer in the Antarctic as a result of agricultural practices. So it's very serious stuff. I chose not to go to university, even though I got a place at Strathclyde, because I wanted to get on with life, and I happened to be right-hand man for a very eminent scientist then, Dr. John Ryden.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I was just incredibly lucky to be his gopher, basically, or his person. His person that sort of invented the gear and did everything to make the experimentations work, actually. So that was really good. I wanted to stay in that domain, but couldn't because they wanted me to go to university, and I still didn't want to go to university. But unfortunately, he collapsed one day in the laboratory.
Oh, wow.
Literally in my arms.
Oh, gosh,
through
okay.
exhaustion.
Yeah.
And there was no one else to take up the work that we were doing. And this was the forefront, if you like, of environmental science.
Yeah. So when was this?
Or popular environmental science, 1980.
1980, okay.
Yeah, so they hadn't even publicised the ozone layer, even though they knew about it then.
Okay.
So it was very important work. So I had to teach myself Fortran, which is computer programming language, to process all this data that we were producing out of these agricultural practices. And I ended up not going to university. I couldn't get any further than I could, so I spent 4 years there, co-wrote, because I wasn't allowed to write, even though I did write it, 3 scientific papers on
Okay, was that with the guy that collapsed or with
Well,
someone else?
unfortunately, he then
did he
took
pass?
he passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Which was very sad, and he was a tremendous influence on me as a whole, actually.
Yeah.
He was a tremendous guy. He was a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
But sadly, so what was I going to do with that? I was mountaineer since I was 16. It all started as me being a naughty boy at school.
Okay.
So they sent me on an Outward Bound course. So I'm a product of Outward Bound.
Oh, okay.
When Outward Bound was beat the hell out of you, basically. Yeah. It's a bit more sensible now, I believe. But I actually enjoyed being beaten up and punished. Sort of. Not punished, but they really stretched you. It was like a ball stall, really.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was a bit like James Bond, A License to Kill, really. And for some reason, they made me captain of the patrol I was in, even though some people were 26 years old. I was only 16.
They obviously saw leadership potential.
Well, yeah, and so I sort of fumbled upon this idea of leadership, and I really loved it. I really loved being responsible for other people's safety, first and foremost, and then, what were we going to do? And I loved, the input from people and sort of getting things going, and I suppose I've got a passion for getting the best out of people, really, if I possibly can, and realising people's passion and purpose in life. And I think we all need purpose in life. So I was very lucky at 16 to find my purpose.
Find your purpose. Yeah, that is amazing. Not many people find it that young.
I was really, really lucky, yeah.
So from mountaineer to...
Yep. So, I had a wife and a child by then. And so I needed to be paid properly, and outdoor adventure instructors weren't paid properly at all, if they were paid at all. So the best way I could see forward was to join the army.
Okay.
Now, I wasn't militaristic in any way, shape or form. And the army really was like me repeating my naughty boy school type of thing, and eventually led to my commanding officer saying, "McNeil, we're going to do one of two things with you. We're either going to throw you out or we're going to send you to Norway." So I said, "Well, I'll go to Norway."
Please
then.
send me to Norway.
For a while. So, I was really lucky again. I got into this little tiny unit that created what I call nasty exercises for anyone that wanted to play soldiers up in the Arctic.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm blessed with a vivid imagination. So that's how I get through life, and that's how I became eventually a safety guy, really.
Yeah.
A high-risk safety guy. So, I had this lovely background. At Outward Bound, actually, I had never read a book from cover to cover, even though I was 16 years old, because that was a sort of education type thing to do, and I didn't like that. I love sport and what have you. But I started reading books about exploration and the daring do's of the explorers of the time, the golden era of exploration. And I haven't stopped, really, but nowadays I can see what is bluff and nonsense and what is probably the truth, which is really, really interesting. And there are loads of people that did so much, other than the people that you hear about, the Scots and the Shackletons and what have you. So, so it's a bit of a bent of mine to publicise these people that didn't really get into the limelight.
Yeah, the unknown adventurers.
Yeah. So I thought when I came out of the army, I was only a very short bit in the army. I hadn't seen my family for a long time, and they offered me 15 months in the Falklands mopping up after a certain incident there, I don't know, and I thought, well, no, that's a complete waste of time. And so I chose family over Falklands, and retrained in marketing communications, would you believe?
Okay.
Because my brother was running a marketing communications company up in the north, and he was forever going down into the south. But I just stumbled upon a time when computer companies, very large multinational computer companies, were just beginning to market themselves. And so I knew a bit from a bite, having taught myself to program the things.
Of course, yeah.
And so I really sat as a freelance account director in London for all these big agencies, translating between the techies and the creatives.
Oh, wow.
Or the creatives
That's
and the techies.
quite a difference from being in Norway.
Yeah. So, I earned a lot of money out of it. But realised, as I had presumed, that money wasn't my motivator in any way, shape or form. And I remember back to being 16 and thinking, why do we exist?
Yeah.
As human beings, why do we exist on this planet? Is there any point in us? And I thought, well, the only point I can possibly see is that we've got to make our lives as worthwhile as possible. It sounds really corny.
No.
But that is my motivation and has been ever since. So having read about all these lovely explorer jobs, I've been a mountaineer, serious mountaineer, for some time. I was on a couple of mountain rescue teams and what have you, because I loved using my skills for the betterment of others. Yeah. I then thought, wouldn't it be great to get that sort of golden era and put it in the modern day setting? So call for volunteers from all walks of life, all echelons of society, and give them the opportunity to take part in these extraordinary adventures, but also make them purposeful and worthwhile.
Hence the research.
Hence the research.
Yeah.
And so the research came into it. I had a little foot in the door of the scientific community, knowing how they worked and what have you. So that helped me enormously in that respect. And it just flourished from there. So Ice Warrior was an emulation of the golden era of exploration.
And when did you start it?
So 2001, and I started it across the road here in Princetown, believe it or not, even though I lived in Berkshire at the time. And so we've had over 450 people that we've trained to be polar competent, 7 major expeditions, and very luckily, I'm very proud of the fact we've been cited in some of the best, scientific magazines around.
That's incredible.
Which is great. Yeah.
I love the puzzle pieces of your life with the Outward Bound and the science and the IT and how it's all come together. Like, that's incredible.
Well, I was earning a fortune. We got to that stage, didn't we? And then I gave it all up to become a fireman.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you also were a fireman as well. Brilliant.
Because I thought I knew about first aid because I got trained in first aid, and I loved that situation where you're using your skills for the betterment of others. And so my Mrs. Mop at the time, I was earning that much money. I had a person that cleaned the house, and for some reason she said, "Did you know that the local fire brigade are looking for people at the moment, Jim?" And I said, "No. Why did you
tell me that?" Yeah.
And I just couldn't get over it. So the same day I walked into a fire station, the local fire station, and said, "Look, I've got all these skills, love the critical crisis and what have you. Can I do anything?" And I just hit them at a sweet spot where they were looking for people to drive fire engines, to wear breathing apparatus. So I got all my training, literally all my training and more in 2 years. I was sucking up everything I possibly could, including the academic side. So I became graduate of Institute of Fire Engineering and what have you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I ended up as a traffic accident specialist for my local authority, but then I also wrote a cheeky letter to the Constable of Windsor Castle, which I lived near, and which had a bit of a fire. You see, saying that I was newly qualified in all this fire engineering stuff. If they wanted someone to help, then have a look at this. And within 2 weeks, I was in the Royal Household Fire Service as well, looking after the country's assets.
That's amazing.
So yeah,
you've done all sorts.
But I worked for both at the same time, which was really good.
Yeah.
And then I created Icewire.
So if you were in Berkshire at the time, why did you set it up in Princetown?
Because Dartmoor is very good for basic training in an extreme environment. It's surprising how bleak and nasty it can be up there. And the head of pressure that it can put on people, which is really good.
I know I follow the Dartmoor Rescue Instagram accounts, and sometimes some of the rescue accounts that they say, like, remember there was one and it was a woman and she'd got lost, and I think they worked out, triangulated her phone or something. They realised she was only about 200 metres from the road, but because the fog was so down, they still had to go and rescue her. And I thought, it's just a great example, isn't it, that you can be so close to the road but still have absolutely no idea where to go. And obviously, if she'd walked in the wrong direction, she could have got even more lost.
Yeah, and
just incredible Dartmoor.
And as you know, you get 4 seasons in the one day.
Yes, well, it was sunny as I drove up through Holland, and then blowing a goot like Hooley when I came in here. So yeah. And how long did it take you to move down to Dartmoor after you'd set up?
About 30 years.
I was assuming that you live here, not still commuting.
Let me see, 2017 I moved down.
Okay. Okay, so you were doing it remotely for a good 15, 16 years. Yeah, I
used to use the YHA or Dartmoor YHA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it quite a relief when you moved down here and you could walk to work?
Yes, marvellous. Absolutely marvellous. So I live upstairs above the shop, and the shop raises money.
Which helps for the expeditions. Yeah. Brilliant. Awesome. So talk about the expeditions. Lucy, can you tell us exactly what the Resolute Expedition is?
Yeah, so the Resolute is part of the Ocean Warrior, and it's our this year is going to be our foundation year of this expedition. So we're going to be travelling this year to Svalbard. So we're going to be circumnavigating the archipelago.
Okay.
The idea is we're going to be setting up and testing all of our equipment for the expedition, which is going to be an 11-year project. So this is the first year. So from next year, we will be doing about 10,000 nautical miles of ocean exploration, which is really exciting. So the project's going to run for about 6 months, June to October.
Next year?
Next year. And it will start in Svalbard, and then it's going to travel down. Where is that? That's like north of Norway.
Okay.
So above Norway. And it's going to go back down to the UK, to Iceland, Greenland, right up to Resolute Bay in Canada, back down again, and then back down to the UK.
Okay. So, hence the Resolute in the name,
absolutely.
Going up to Canada.
Resolute Bay, exactly. Yeah. And it's going to be 144 ordinary people, so I'm one of those ordinary people. doing some citizen science basically, and we're going to be collecting as much data as we possibly can about the state of the oceans. So looking at species count, the ice, photographing the ice, checking what pollution's up there, because unfortunately I'm pretty sure we're going to find pollution up in the Arctic. And we'll all be learning to sail as well, so it's a real mixture of citizen science, kind of like challenging yourself, meeting new people, pushing yourself to your limits, and one of the main reasons, and especially for me, why I got involved is about telling that story. So coming back to your local community and talking about what's actually happening in the Arctic.
So because what's your background?
Not exploration.
Not exploration.
No. So my background, I've worked in social care and specialist education for my whole career, really, so 13 years. So I've always worked with young people who have autism or learning difficulties, and I've also run children's homes for young people with trauma backgrounds. But I've always been outside because I was brought up in Devon, so how can you not be, really? You know, wandering around Dartmoor on the weekends, or walking up to the River Dart and messing around. So it's always kind of been in my blood to be outside. And I did my forest school training with you guys after working with young people out in nature, because I saw some of just the most transformational work happen outside. You know, I used to take young people who had really severe trauma backgrounds, who, you know, would find it really difficult to open up and have conversations and connect with people. But as soon as you took them caving, for example, suddenly they became the most helpful, kind, talking about their experiences. I think it just changes young people when they're outside.
So are you planning, when you come back, to talk to some of those children that you were working with again?
Absolutely, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing when I come back yet.
Okay,
I've
big question mark.
Kind of paused on my job at the moment to think about what's the next step, because I want to find a way of bringing the work that I do in kind of social care and kind of climate action, and I guess getting people back out in nature all together.
Bring it all together somehow.
I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but...
So I was about to ask, what do you hope the expedition to achieve? But you've kind of talked about the citizen science already. What kind of partners are you working with? Because I know you're going to be giving the data to other people to analyse, aren't you? So
Yeah, I mean, I tried with Ice Warrior. I was really lucky because I had a foot in the door of the scientific community. Our partners are NASA and the National Snow and Ice Data Centre, which are, you know, the really big boys who say what is happening in the world. And so they direct and orchestrate the data that they want us to gather, basically. And for Ice Warrior, there's a huge lack of knowledge about how ice forms and deforms, and therefore the prediction of how long the ice will last up there, which is pretty critical to catastrophic weather systems, is pretty important. So that's what we've been doing up there. But down here, I looked around for the best sort of oceanographers I could possibly find, and lo and behold, Plymouth is a major centre of excellence worldwide. So we're teaming up with Plymouth Marine Laboratory.
Is that part of the aquarium?
No, it's not actually. No, it's
just a separate thing.
It's a sort of super scientific. I mean, they keep their light under a bushel, really.
Because I've not heard of them.
PML, they're called. You'll see their boats in the harbour there, but them and the Marine Biological Association, which likewise most people haven't heard of, but they're sitting there in Plymouth,
just down the road,
which was amazing, and so we're teaming up with them to really analyse the most important thing we can,
which is the ice.
There are two real advantages, three real advantages about what we're doing. One is that it's 10 years long, or it's 11 years long, including the foundation, and that's really important. We should be able to watch things change, because the second thing is we're going along the same route for that 10,000 nautical miles each year.
I was just about to say, so same route every year. So you'll be able to see.
So we'll be able to watch
like
change.
For like,
The premise, of course, is if we're not, watching these extreme environments, how do we know that anything we try and do to mitigate climate change is actually working? We don't. And the third thing is immediacy. Science works in a very slow way. Even the autonomous satellite data collections and the buoys that, before they analyse the data, it'll be 2, 3, 4, 18 months before the paper's written. And a great example of that, probably the greatest example, is the International Panel on Climate Change. Their big report, the beginning of last year, was probably 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
By the time it came out.
Yeah.
So we're probably 7 or 8 years behind the...
Yeah, and some of the dates they give us, like as these kind of, we've got to have change by this, are actually coming up quite fast, aren't they? Like
very fast indeed, and we're not shifting at all.
No, we're not moving fast enough.
So if we can put a better, much more immediate finger on the pulse of what the planet is doing, that's my aim.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to do with the oceans particularly. But also... we're releasing Desert Warrior next year as well. So
yes, and we'll have to talk about that one for a second. Yeah, so Lucy, you said about taking pictures of the ice. Is that literally just photographs then?
It's called photogrammetry.
Okay.
So a picture can tell loads of stories, particularly if you take several pictures of the same thing in a different angle, then the computer can work out a 3D dimensional model of that, and therefore you get the disturbance, and if you've got the disturbance you can work out some of the thermodynamics as to how that occurred.
Will there be any underwater I know it sounds stupid, but like obviously like you talk about ice going under the water as well. Do you have like little things to go underneath?
Underneath pole photography, basically.
Yeah. I didn't know the terms.
We're not going to...
I was going to say submarines, but I was like, that's probably not the right thing.
Yeah, we're not going to dive because the risk implications are rather large.
That'll make your insurance even higher.
Well, it's just too expensive, really. But yeah.
So you'll use pole photography. You said about learning to sail. So I was thinking a boat like... a motorboat, but obviously it's a sailing boat.
It's a sailing boat. It's a 3-masted schooner, and it's a replica of an old ship. So it's absolutely beautiful as well. I have to say that it looks it's something that I can't wait to see in real life.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. But I have no background in sailing again, so this is completely new to me, new challenge. But just a great opportunity to learn a new skill. But
you
also
learn on the boat, or do you do it in advance?
So we learn on the boat. So we're kind of thrown straight
and
into
where is
it. Where is she?
Yeah.
She's based up in Norway.
She's in Tromsø at the moment. She's right at the top of mainland Norway, but she operates out of Svalbard, which is where we have our polar base.
Yes, so you'll fly out there.
Yeah.
So we fly out there to join the vessel, and then.
And what's her name? The boat?
It's the sailing vessel Linden.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was built in 1993 by a museum team actually.
Okay.
Who replicated a Baltic trader. So it's a double-hulled wooden 3-masted schooner, the largest in Europe.
That's incredible. And how many people can be on it at once?
Well, it could take up to 30, but we're going to have 18 of us on board. And then it's got a professional crew that stay on board of 6 or 8.
Yeah. Will everyone work in kind of the shift systems like you do, like watch, like
We've
6
got
on, 4 off, whatever?
3 watches. One will be doing the science, one will be doing the sailing of the vessel, and the third one will be sleeping, of course, hopefully. But it's really, the third really important point is that this is science gathered by a polluting vessel. Normally they're gas-guzzling heavy diesel jobbies.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking when we said it originally, and then you said sail, and I was like, oh, hang on a second, that makes more sense, because then it's in keeping with what you guys are trying to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's completely unique around the world, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, because I think Greta, didn't she, when she went over to New York, she went on a sailing boat.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember everyone was like, oh, why have you done that? And it's like, well, of course she's going to, because you've got to put your money where your mouth is, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what kind of challenges do you guys expect to face? I mean, you mentioned seasickness before this, so that's obviously one that you're thinking that you might face.
Well, as a teenager, I was an armchair sailor. So I used to read books about it and think, isn't that fantastic, sailing off into the sun and what have you. But my father accused me of being sick on the Woolwich ferry, and that goes from one side of the Thames to the other side of the Thames. So my sea legs sort of let me down, really. But my first proper sailing was across Drake Passage to Antarctica in a 55-foot sailing vessel. So that was a baptism of fire. And ever since then, I've been less sick.
Do you get used to it quite quickly?
Well, I think so, yeah. What I was really surprised at, because I was leading the expedition, it was a BBC production actually, so I was leading the expedition for the BBC down to Antarctica, and I thought, gosh, I've got to do this sailing. I must employ the best sailor I can possibly do, because I think I'm going to be incapacitated. So I employed Skip Novak, who is very well known for high latitude sailing. But what the amazing thing that I witnessed was him being totally and utterly relieved when we actually hit the lee of the island.
Oh, really?
So, his head of pressure had been huge during this thing, which was amazing for a guy with such experience. So it made me feel lots better.
A lot better, yeah. I also think that seasickness, it depends on the vessel you're on, because I lived on a boat for a couple of years and I never got seasick on it, but everyone that came on it, even if they were seasoned sailors, there was something about just the movement of this particular boat that made everyone ill. So maybe it'll be in luck and Lyndon will be a smoother sail.
Well, our patron is Tracy Edwards, who led the first all-female runners-up to the round the world yacht race at the time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and she we invited her on the boat for a day, and she said, "Oh no, people do that to me all the time, but I get seasick." She said. And apparently most of the sailors get seasick. After the first 4 days, they're fine. But the first 4 days, they're taking pills and everything.
Yeah. I imagine I'll also be seasick, but I'm on the boats that I have been on, which haven't been sailing boats, I've been okay. But for me, there's the cold, I think, because I've never experienced...
so challenges for you, you're worried about the cold.
Never experienced that kind of cold before, so that's going to be interesting. And I think just... generally, the fact that we're going to be busy the whole time, it's not, this is not holiday.
There'll be no downtime.
We're working, we're going to be doing the science, or we're going to be sailing. And I think also kind of being with the other crew and how the dynamics of that's going to work when people are tired and they're, they're challenged. Actually, how do we all kind of interact with each other, I think will be really interesting to see as well.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we want to capture as well, and the whole reason for doing it as well. I'm a normal guy from a very humble background, council estate in London. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. But I want to show those stories.
Yeah.
I want to depict those stories in their fullest, warts and all fashion.
So do people come from all over the world, or just all over the UK?
No, all over the world, actually. Yeah, we're getting really significant international.
So there might be language issues as well?
Yes, there could well be, yeah.
Any other challenges particularly that you've thought
of? Well, just you're doing the science, but capturing the story is a real challenge in a really good way. Yeah. I've batted back lots of production companies, TV production companies. I probably one a month for the last goodness knows how many years, who want to make Ice Idol out of it.
Or something,
they've got a thing in their head. Oh, this sounds like a good idea. We could do this with it, or we could do that with it. So I say, no. Actually, what I want to just show you is the human story about these people taking part, their motivations, their peaks, their troughs, because that's far more interesting than anything you can create in Soho or New York. So,
will you use social media to kind of track the expedition?
So we will be filming it ourselves.
Yes. Okay.
We'll be seeding it on YouTube.
Okay.
On our YouTube channel.
I'll put that in the links.
So please do. And then we will create a documentary series out of it, but
by
after
yourself,
the event,
and after you've done
with editorial control.
Yes. So you're in charge. So you can tell the story.
That's right.
Yourself.
Yeah. And I'm absolutely open to all the mistakes I will make. I've seen, people in this microcosm of a extreme environment, or an expedition team. People.
I was going to say, like in business, they talk about like the storming, forming, norming. Do you see that in a very short space of time?
Yes, that's sort of.
I don't know if that's the right way around. I think it is. No, maybe it's forming first, isn't it? Forming and then storming and then norming. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
You do. But I'm wary of acronyms like that because they never really tell the whole story. They give an indication, and as an indication, it's fine. But the reality is far more complicated.
Yeah, more shades of grey than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we human beings. The first thing I try and teach people is that we're frail. we're infallible. We're not. Sorry, we're
Yeah.
fallible.
Yeah.
We're not infallible.
So be kind.
And we will make mistakes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how experienced you are. It doesn't matter, how skilled you are. You
Yeah.
will make mistakes at some stage. So to tell that as a story, is fascinating, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. I'm really excited to
And
be following
empowering
it.
as well, because people in the first instance get to know about themselves in these extreme environments, because there's no room for bluff, there's no room for facade or anything. You find your real self.
Yeah,
and once you've done that, you can then work on that sort of performance. And the second thing you realise is that if you look after each other, then it's much safer, much kinder, much warmer, much more easy to put up with the deprivations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you form a little community on the boat.
Yeah.
Looks after each other.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Lucy, you're joining Jim for 10 or possibly 20 days. 20
hopefully.
days, hopefully, first of all, this year, and then hopefully more next year. So I think you mentioned it a little bit more, but just kind of what led you to go, like, how did you find Global Warrior? How did you go, actually, this is what I want to do, this is why I want to pause my career to do this?
Well, I was actually doom scrolling, as you do.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, and I came across an article in Devon Live with Jim talking about the expedition and Global Warrior and Ocean Warrior, and just thought, wow, that sounds really interesting. For a long time now, I've been thinking about, our planet's in crisis, kind of thinking about all the independent little things that I can do in my life to make a difference. And as soon as I saw the article, I don't know, something just called to me about it. And given that it was local as well, and I live not too far from Princetown, I applied. So I put my chitty in and said I'd love to do this.
Yeah.
And got invited to a selection weekend, which I cannot talk about.
But now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just, as soon as I kind of was involved in that selection weekend and meeting other people who were also really keen on doing this, I realised this could be like a really big turning point actually for me in my life. Not only is it kind of contributing to hopefully a brighter future for all life on Earth, but it's a real personal challenge for me, and that's always something I've been interested in. I'm always looking to do something new and challenge myself and get the most out of life that I possibly can, because our time here is fairly short, so I want to experience as much as possible. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it? You can't protect what you don't love, and ultimately I know this part of the world really well, but actually I've never been to the Arctic, and I hear all the time about how things are changing, but without actually seeing it in person, I think it's very hard to talk about it and get other people on board in protecting those spaces. So just a really good challenge and a way to contribute really and kind of give back.
What are you most looking forward to?
I think just getting away from four walls, phones, the kind of everyday modern life, and really immersing myself in nature, like really, really truly immersing myself in nature and just being challenged by nature. The sailing is going to be really difficult, and you're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature when you're doing that. So I think that moment to step away from and kind of just be at one with nature, and then really kind of get involved in that way, I think would be great.
Really exciting.
Yeah, so exciting.
So you've obviously had to do a lot of fundraising so that's how it works, is you get sponsorship. So how's that going?
Yeah, I mean it's hard.
Yeah.
There's no denying that, but I've already had some really great local organisations that have got involved, and friends and family that have contributed. But it's hard work, trying to get money out of people. But I think as soon as they kind of I think most of the people that are sponsoring, it's about you as a person and your story, and they want to hear what you're doing and how that's going to work for you. So they've, I have got lots of people that are involved, but I've got to keep going, and I need more sponsorship.
Yes, so if someone does want to get in touch, where can they find you most easily?
So I have an Instagram page. It's probably one of the easiest places to go to. So that's Ocean Warrior Lucy.
Yeah,
really
I'll put that in the show notes as well.
I have an email address as well, and obviously you can get hold of Jim through warrior-ocean.com. There's lots of different places, but yeah, I'd say that if you want to get hold of me, that's the best place to do it. And I'm sharing my story on there.
I was just about to ask whether you're sharing your story.
Yeah, I'm building a picture of what we're doing, and so I need sponsorship for this year, and I'm almost there on my sponsorship for this year. Push, but next year I'd like to go for as long as possible. So it'd be great to have some organisations involved that can follow my story from this year, learning to sail, and then going back
and then
again
be part
next
of it next year as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So Jim, you were mentioning earlier about sponsors. So obviously, I was going to ask how you fund obviously the individual people are getting their own sponsorship, but like what else? There must be so many costs involved. Like,
yes,
I mean the shop you were saying, like
huge.
the profits from the shop kind of help contribute.
Yeah, they
towards
do.
it.
Yeah, they do. They keep me going actually.
Yeah.
And my wife Sam.
Oh yeah, I should explain what shop we're in. It's all outdoor gear, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah. Basically, we outfit people for the more and beyond. Basically,
More and beyond. I like that.
So all the locals get a local discount, but don't tell anyone else that.
How local's local.
Anyone in Devon, basically. But yeah, they realise that they're contributing to something that's much greater. So it's really nice that people choose us to get themselves out.
Yeah.
And we do. There is a side to the business that Ice Warrior Expeditions Limited that is a consultancy.
Okay.
That gets people out to do Everest and other silly
So people who are
things,
doing
really.
Everest, like, I was about to say for fun. I don't know whether that's the right word you should use for Everest, but people that are doing it just for, just because they want to push themselves.
Yeah, and scientists. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of scientific clients as well that we train and we kit out.
Yeah.
And camera operators and things like that
Yeah.
for the BBC. We've got training packages for them.
Oh, that's a
what
really...
have you.
Yeah, I hadn't
Yeah.
even thought about that, because isn't that stupid? Like, I think about, you see everyone up doing it, but you don't think about the people filming, that they also need to be kitted out.
Well, I was really lucky. I was a safety guy on Frozen Planet and Human Planet and a lot of the NHU, the Natural History Unit programmes.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic, and I kitted them out, I trained them, and I took them out there.
Yeah.
But nowadays I haven't got time to take them out there. So,
No.
yeah, just really, really lucky. What was the question?
I think I was asking about how you fund it. I was saying there must be so much costs involved in
So
a big
I spend
expedition like this.
my life at the moment, going after sponsorship.
Yeah.
So that can be anyone from a material sponsor, like our latest one is, I can't say their name, but
that's
they
fine.
are providing over 100,000 euros of scientific equipment to equip the boat out,
Amazing.
which is absolutely incredible. But our commercial partner is Henry Lloyd, the British sailing brand,
gear,
which is an amazing start, as it were.
Yeah,
for Ocean
they're so well known.
Warrior, and it's tremendous kit, and they have a really good eco system going on with their clothing as well, converting it from what most people purvey at the moment to something that is really ecologically sound, or as sound as you can make it at the moment.
Yeah.
So they've got a great story to tell, and I'm happy to tell it. So, and so I spend my life with a numb bum and square eyes, looking at the computer and presenting to people and what.
And you can't wait to get on that boat and away from the computers for a bit.
But actually, it's a double-edged sword. I just took a few days off, which I never do really. But my lovely partner, wife Sam, insisted that we go to France for a few days, and that was interesting. So I could work at the morning, work in the evening, but I had to take the day off, which was
How
really
did you
good.
find
But
that?
I find it really difficult, to be honest. I feel
switch
guilty. Yeah. I'm driven by this thing working.
Yeah.
And I can't help that. So and I've always been the same, really. Once I found that purpose, then
That's what's...
and so I think I'll, on my deathbed, I'll be the same.
Yeah. I was looking down at my questions, just my notes, and I'd asked about why the work's so important, but we've already explained that, like your 3-part thing earlier about the immediacy and the lag in science and stuff. That kind of explains, doesn't it, why it's so important to get that kind of...
It is incredibly important that we put our finger on these areas and keep our finger there. And it allows us also to point the finger to governments and commercial entities that should be doing something that aren't doing
So you're not
something.
doing
And that's
enough,
the really serious side, and that's
Yeah.
the side I'm going to concentrate on as the sort of figurehead.
Kind of lobbying.
Yeah, because there are huge things to shout about at the moment.
I haven't put this on any of our notes in advance, so you'll have to excuse me for springing something on you. But I was just thinking, obviously, like ocean pollution and like the ice caps melting things, that's stuff we will talk about. But you mentioned the desert earlier, and I've not even really, I don't think I've heard any coverage about climate change in the desert. So would you tell us a little bit about what Desert Warrior is? Right.
Well, desertification. So the conversion of land that could sustain crops and what have you is absolutely prime. I mean, if you take the Sahara, in the last 10 years, it's expanded 16%, which is huge. Yeah. That's a massive thing to begin with. But all the rest of the world's deserts as well are all expanding at the moment. And people's livelihoods, their survival depends on these desert areas.
Yeah.
And the aquifers are disintegrating because water's being used elsewhere. It could be thousands of miles away for agricultural purposes, feeding just a few. Whereas, we should really be looking at these systems and the biodiversity that's disintegrating as well with those systems.
So that's another research project then?
The research is huge. And the same for mountains. I mean, 30% of the planet lives because the mountains provide them with water, that provide them with food, and yet we're losing all the glaciers and what have you. It's all heating up and getting polluted. And soil itself, I rather worryingly spoke to a very senior soil scientist, global presence, who said that he thought that we've only got 7 years left to provide the planet
I saw
with
it in the news last year.
agriculture as we know it. So we've got to change.
We've got to change, and we've got to change quick.
And we've got to change really quickly. And the sooner we realise that, the better. But unfortunately, I think our systems are locked. I'm a pragmatist at the end of the day, and our systems are locked or very slow to move because we're reliant upon antiquated politics, political systems. We're reliant upon commercial avarice, basically, greed. Why should you progress a company? Why should you make people unemployed when you're still making a profit? It doesn't make sense to me. Just morally, it doesn't make sense. So there's a whole huge thing. I won't get my soapboxes out now.
But, we can always do another one.
But there are huge areas that I just want to talk about. And those, when you talk about the deserts, people aspire to knowing more about these regions. The jungles, the middle of the jungle, there's all sorts of biodiversity problems going on, and trashing of the trees and things like that. So all of these extreme environments are the barometer of change, really, the indicators of how we're faring.
So before we started recording, you were saying that it was Ice Warrior, then it became global to hit those five areas. So is desert the first one that you've done after ocean, or after polar? Sorry.
So polar's been going 22 years. 7 major expeditions and all that. Ocean's next, I launched that at the beginning of this year. And then desert will probably be November next year. And then jungle and mountain are coming soon.
Wow. Cracking on with all of them. And they're all same premise, citizen science research.
Ice Warrior was the model, so it's repeating the model in a different environment. With very little change, really.
And you're going to try and
always
be
accessible.
Feet on the ground for most of them for a little bit of it?
Yes. I will beam in, beam out,
Which one are you most looking forward to out of the 5?
Well, I have done quite a lot of desert stuff, so I do like the deserts. You're
okay with the heat?
I once went from -21 in the Arctic to +52 with a Bedouin in the Jordanian desert, and the Bedouin were complaining about how hot it was. And, Jim, how can you stand it? And I said, well, I'm just uncomfortable at a different level.
Which would you prefer, the heat or the ice?
I don't think I have a preference, really.
Just whichever.
No, they're so different. It's like solo stuff. I did a lot of my original stuff, going to live with the Inuit and going out from Inuit bases on a solo basis. And the solo expedition is another dimension that's really, really nice. But so's taking complete novices and training them to
up,
be competent in those environments, and that's a different thing entirely, different leadership thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a whole different ball game. Yeah, but obviously something you like doing from your leadership origins at 16.
Absolutely love
so,
it. Yeah.
Lucy, so obviously, if you get the bug, would you be intrigued by the other ones, or is Polar where your head's at?
I think I'm definitely interested in the others. I think Ocean kind of sings to me just because I was brought up in Devon and so near the water. So I think for me that it's the water part of it. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll get the bug and that's it.
You'll be an explorer for life.
Yeah, I'll want to try all of the others. I think jungle scares me a little bit. The bugs, I think, would put me off slightly. But yeah, I think Ocean's probably where my heart is. But who knows? Maybe I will give the others a go.
Who knows what the future holds?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I've taken up quite a lot of your time to get, and I know you guys are super busy, but is there anything else you guys wanted to tell us that we haven't covered?
No, I just make an appeal really for everyone to prick up their ears, because this does involve everyone. It's far bigger than politics. It's far more important than commerce, and it does boil down to us as individuals to do something about it collectively.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, if depending on when the podcast comes out, we're also giving a talk in Totnes on the 22nd of July at the Albatross. So people will be welcome to come along to that
brilliant.
and hear all about us. Yeah.
Excellent. So I'll just quickly finish by, I've been asking everyone these 3 questions because it's a nice way to finish, and I love the variety in people's answers. Jim, you can go first. How do you relax? I mean, given what you were just saying about driving.
How do I relax? I'm not sure I do relax. Do I relax?
It could be an active relaxation.
I do a bit of reading.
Yeah.
And I do a bit of watching decent stuff on television.
Okay.
I'm not much for fantastical things or stories or things that aren't real, I suppose.
Okay.
But that's my relaxation.
Being on the moors.
Being on the moors,
Going and watching our peregrines that we've got locally. We've got some peregrines that we follow their juveniles into the nest, so we do that. And we can't deny that we enjoy to eat good quality local food.
Yeah.
Yes.
We really want to support local farming and local meat production, and so we ensure that we indulge in good food.
Any favourite restaurants around here you'd recommend?
Oh.
Or now the thing is, if you miss one, I don't want to upset everyone.
We make it our business to ensure that we know what all the eateries are like around here.
Okay.
Because of the nature of the people coming through the store as well.
Yeah. How about you? How do you relax, Lucy?
I think eating is probably also a favourite of mine. I think when you live around here, you've got so many great places that are kind of organic, locally sourced. So food is definitely big on my list of things to do. But I also love paddleboarding on the Dart, because it's so, especially if you go in the weir above Totnes, it's just still. So you can just paddle for miles and then stop off with a picnic. I've got a camper van, so just weekends away. Reading, definitely really enjoy reading. Painting, so lots of different things. Really.
Absolutely. What are you reading or listening to right now? You did mention books, so you can give us a book plug.
Okay, I can't remember what they call it actually, but it's a fascinating book about our tidal waters and how the waters are affected by climate change, basically, or how they work. In fact, it really goes into great detail and depth, pardon the pun, about mixing of the waters and salinity and temperature. So it's it's really building up the back catalogue to my knowledge, really.
So your reading is still for work usually.
Well, it is pretty much. If I usually have several books on the go, and the other one's about Shackleton.
Excellent.
I'm the same. I've always got about 7 books on the go, which is quite confusing sometimes actually. But
what are you up to right now? Any in particular?
I guess the most relevant ones for what we're doing at the moment. I'm reading a book called Thunderstone by Nancy Klein, I think it is. So it's about women who after lockdown bought a caravan and basically put it in the middle of the woods and completely changed her life and started living off of the land. So that's really fascinating. And I'm also reading On Time and Water by Andre Magnuson. And that's basically a history and a future of the water, but in discussion with kind of connection and relationships and family and how it's all changing through the times. So, and then I also love Isabella Landé, which is fiction. So I'm reading about that as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And finally, and I did get told this was a stupid question by someone recently, but I do think that it's still worth asking because everyone's got a different answer. Why is being outdoors important to you?
I think exposure to Mother Nature at whatever level, doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be extreme, but it gets you to look inwardly, and I think that's empowering. To be accepting of yourself and your frailties and your fallibilities and but also your strengths, knowing your strengths and trying to get rid of that delusion that we all have in everyday life is a really good thing to do. So I think Mother Nature, being outdoors, allows you to do that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think kind of similar, really. I think for me, it's about grounding and coming back to yourself. We live in a society that's very on the go all the time and always forward moving. And I think when you spend time outside, it gives you that opportunity to pause, I guess, and reflect and just slow back down and kind of realign yourself with like what is it I'm actually doing rather than just running in the rat race. I think that's why it's really important to get outside.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, guys.
Thank you very much.
And I'm really looking forward to following the expedition and seeing how it all goes.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you. A big thank you again to Jim and to Lucy for inviting me up to base camp at Princetown to talk about their upcoming Resolute Expedition. I really enjoyed the conversation, as you could probably tell, and I could have spent all day talking to them. If you enjoyed the conversation and want to find out more, you can follow them on Instagram at Ice Warrior Jim and Ocean Warrior Lucy, and you can follow the YouTube channel at Global Warrior. And if you're local to us in Devon, don't forget they've got a talk coming up on the 22nd of July in Totnes, and we'll put that link in the show notes as well. If you did enjoy the episode, we would love it if you would rate the podcast, subscribe, share it with your friends, just so that more people can find us. Until then, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode, and thanks for listening.